The world is home to some of the most terrifying runways that challenge even the most experienced pilots. These airstrips are not your typical smooth landings, they are filled with extreme weather conditions, short runways, high altitudes, and hazardous terrain. One of the most dangerous is Lukla Airport in Nepal, often called the gateway to Mount Everest. Nestled between towering mountains with a runway that is just 1,729 feet long, pilots have no room for error. The runway is sloped upward to help slow planes down, but if a landing goes wrong, there's a deadly drop-off at the end. Only highly skilled pilots with special training are allowed to operate here, as strong winds, fog, and unpredictable weather make landing even more treacherous. Another frightening runway is in St. Martin, at Princess Juliana International Airport. The reason? This runway starts just a few meters away from Maho Beach, meaning planes fly dangerously low over tourists before touching down on the short landing strip. The sight of a massive jet roaring just above beachgoers' heads is both thrilling and terrifying. Pilots must approach at the perfect angle to avoid overshooting the runway, which could send the plane straight into the ocean. Similarly, Toncontin International Airport in Honduras is notorious for its tricky approach. Located in a valley surrounded by mountains, pilots must make an extremely sharp turn at the last moment before landing on a very short runway. This dangerous maneuver leaves no room for error, and there have been several accidents due to planes struggling to stop in time. Even experienced pilots consider Toncontin one of the hardest airports to land in due to its unpredictable wind patterns in close proximity to the city. Another terrifying location is Courchevel Airport in France, sitting in the snowy French Alps. This airstrip is not only short, measuring just 1,762 feet, but it is also sloped at an alarming gradient of 18.5%, making takeoff and landing a serious challenge. The surrounding mountains offer no second chances for pilots, as they must land with pinpoint accuracy or risk crashing into the rugged alpine terrain. Adding to the danger, there is no go-round option. If a pilot miscalculates their approach, they are forced to land no matter what. Moving to Bhutan, we find Paro Airport, which is surrounded by towering Himalayan peaks and requires pilots to navigate a challenging route through narrow valleys. With no radar-assisted landing system, pilots must rely purely on visual flying techniques, meaning landings are only allowed during daylight hours and in perfect weather conditions. Only a handful of pilots worldwide are certified to land here, and those who do must execute sharp turns and steep descents just to reach the runway. Another deadly airstrip is Madeira Airport in Scotland, which is unique because its runway is literally on a beach. At high tide, the runway disappears underwater, meaning pilots must time their landings carefully to avoid disaster. Strong winds, shifting sands, and high waves add to the difficulty, making it one of the most unpredictable places to land a plane. Then there's Gibraltar International Airport, which has an active road running straight across its runway. Yes, you read that right, cars and pedestrians must stop at a traffic light whenever a plane is landing or taking off. This unusual design exists because the tiny British territory of Gibraltar has limited space, forcing the airport to share land with its main highway. Despite strict traffic controls, the idea of cars waiting just meters away from an incoming aircraft adds an extra layer of anxiety to every landing. Next on the list is Madeira Airport in Portugal, which is located on a tiny island with limited space. The runway was originally too short for larger aircraft, so engineers had to extend it, by building it on giant stilts over the ocean. Now, pilots must land on a raised platform supported by concrete pillars while dealing with strong crosswinds that make landing extremely difficult. One wrong move could send a plane tumbling into the sea below. Similarly, Kai Tak Airport in Hong Kong, though now closed, was once one of the most infamous runways in aviation history. Pilots had to navigate through a dense city, making a dramatic right turn just before landing while barely avoiding skyscrapers. The sight of massive jets weaving between apartment buildings was terrifying for both passengers and city residents. The airport was eventually closed due to safety concerns, but it remains legendary in aviation history. Finally, we have Saba Airport in the Caribbean, home to the shortest commercial runway in the world at just 1,312 feet. This tiny strip is perched on the edge of a cliff, with sheer drops into the ocean on both sides. Pilots must land with absolute precision, as there is no room for mistakes. Overshooting the runway means plunging straight into the sea. The extreme shortness of the runway makes it impossible for larger aircraft to land, so only small planes with highly trained pilots can operate here. These runways prove that flying isn't always a smooth experience. While most airports around the world are designed for safety and ease, these dangerous landing strips push pilots to their limits and make passengers hold their breath. Whether it's dodging mountains, dealing with unpredictable winds, or landing on runways that seem far too short, these airports remind us that air travel can sometimes be just as terrifying as it is thrilling.